introduce the next item.
Yes, and Darasu, thank you very much. Good evening again. The purpose of this next item is to update the Board of Trustees by staff and the community on the ongoing activities related to the Emeryville Center of Community Life project. Mr. Baker.
Okay, good evening. This is the monthly update on the project progress over at the ECCL site. Just a reminder, this is the layout of the site showing the buildings. You may hear me refer to buildings A, B, C, D, and E. Again, for those of you who aren't familiar, if you look at the right side of the site at the corner of 53rd and San Pablo is the community building, or building A. Along San Pablo in the middle there, you'll see that's the administration building, which is building B. At the left-hand side along 47th and San Pablo is Building D, the high school. The big building in the middle is the K-8 school, which is Building C. And then in the back is the renovated gym and pool, which is called Building E, just to orient everyone. Design and construction update. The gym wall framing is in progress, the studs inside the gym. The expansion, which is the addition to the east side of the gym, the steel and concrete is complete, and I've got photographs to show all these this good progress. The high school steel welding and bolting is complete, which is actually quite a bit of work that's now done. The high school floor slabs are poured. We're actually pouring the last slab tomorrow. So at the end of this week, all those will be poured. The high school HVAC, which is heating, ventilating, and air conditioning work is in progress. The community building, the building A, steel and framing is in progress, and you can see that if you drive along San Pablo. The admin building B, all the concrete work is now complete. The K-8 school, all the foundations are complete. All of our concrete is now, as of tomorrow, all of our concrete will be poured except for the slabs in the K-8 school. So that's kind of a big milestone that we've done all that concrete pouring. A design update, pool renovation and bidding is complete, and we'll be discussing that facility at the city schools meeting next week.
I was hoping you could talk about the process of the bidding of the pool. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear how the bidding came out.
What the process was?
No, how the bidding is. If the bidding is complete, how does it look?
So the pool bidding, we had 4 bids. They range in cost from about 1.4 to 2 million. It is substantially over the budget that was set by the pool consultant, because that facility is used. That includes, however, some options that could be not included in the scope, and that's why, because the city runs that pool facility. The consensus has been that to discuss that with the city and school, the school board and council members of city schools together would be an important forum for that discussion, to decide which of those should be included, not included, and have that discussion prior to awarding the contract for the pool renovation work.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the original budget somewhere in the $400,000 range?
No, it's 700,000.
700. Okay. Right.
What are the additional things that are making it more expensive than 700,000?
Through the design process, the filtration system. So that the school, last fall, a pool consultant was selected as a sub-consultant to the architect. The consultant put together a budget for the project that they were designing to. During the design process, a couple of things came up. First is the filtration system, which is how the pool drains at the edge of the pool. Once we got into the design process, there were discussions about improving upon what was included in the original scope, which was viewed as being more appropriate to the use of the pool. And I will elaborate next week at city schools on all these things. In addition, an option, which is not inexpensive, is to replace the pool deck. All the contractors are saying that by the time we do all the work, the deck will be so cut up that you'll have a patchwork quilt of concrete, and that concrete deck will, over time, it won't wear well, et cetera, so they're recommending the pool deck be replaced. So those are the two most significant things that resulted in the bids being higher. But again, all those things were priced separately, so those could be taken out of the scope, as they're included as deductive alternates.
Which means one could say, you know what, don't redo the pool deck.
That is correct. That's correct.
Don't give us that
Right.
filtration, give
Exactly.
us the cheap one.
Right.
And we probably should wait for city schools for this conversation.
Yeah, that's-
Because the city had, and I think for good reason, some city staff had some strong interest in seeing the pool done correctly, as we have had interest in seeing the network infrastructure done correctly. And part of that is the type of pool, if this is the design we go with, will allow the seniors in the community, for example, to not have to deal with as much resistance in the water. Again, the specific filtration system was selected. So I think that the difficult part for us, as you all know, I think a lot of the planning for this was done over the years, and a lot of things, either have changed over time, or prices have gone up as the economy has changed. And so I think those might be factoring into this as well. But as Mr. Baker said, we'll be bringing this next week.
Right. We'll go over this in more detail. The rationale is that the city actually runs the pool facility, and on behalf of the district in many cases for programs, they teach swim lessons, et cetera. So it's important to engage both the city and the district in the discussion about how to proceed with the pool. Okay.
So it won't be opening in August.
The other thing that is that the filtration system, pool deck, those two items, then instead of a 3 to 4 month project, that becomes a 5 to 6 month project. It becomes a longer construction duration. That's the other issue. It's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Mr. Baker, what's the situation with the gym modernization? Will that be opening at a staggered opening with?
Yeah, the gym modernization, there's actually 3 parts of it. There's the pool and restrooms is one part. There's the gym itself, and then there's the sort of ancillary facilities along the east edge. And they actually have 3 different completion dates in the baseline schedule.
So the district would be able to take possession of the gym before the
Correct.
start of the academic year?
If DSA is amenable, we could phase the occupancy of that building. That's correct.
And then one other point, going back to the budget issues and the monies, this clarification or statement pertaining to where the money comes from. It's from capital, it's not from general fund. So as
It's
far as
all,
the
it's,
bidding
the funds are bond funds and city capital funds. That's correct. Okay. So I want to just continue with some, as with every construction project, we have unforeseen conditions and challenges. I just want to kind of point out some of these things and what our efforts are to mitigate them. And I'll show some photographs of these things. The gym itself, when we did the demolition work up in the ceiling, the steel framing actually had lead paint on it, the same exact color of the steel. And so it was very difficult to see it when we got up there. It was not identified in the hazmat report that was done a couple years ago. So we had to actually go in and abate some of that, and I'll show you a picture of that. So that actually caused that will result in a delay of about 2 or 3 weeks in the framing work up in that roof. But we're working with the contractor to see if we can do some other things to pick up time on that schedule. The gym roof framing, once we demo the roof off, the framing and the sheathing, the plywood sheathing are damaged in some areas, so we've got to go fix that. And these are the things that are uncovered as we do demolition, and we're analyzing what the schedule impacts of this. They're relatively minor by themselves, but together they may result in a month or so schedule impact. Just letting everyone know we're still analyzing those. We've not had anything submitted with the contractor. We're analyzing and also see how we can mitigate them. The soil at foundation excavation utility trenches, this is not a schedule impact, but as we've dug up the soil and for trenches and foundations, that is like just when we did our soil remediation, that's got hazmat in it. So we've had to off-haul that, so that's more of a cost issue. Again, not significant as for the project budget, but it's something that we didn't know until you test that soil to see. The sewer line routing in the street has been very tricky. The city has actually been very helpful. Public Works Director Maurice Kaufman's been helpful in trying to figure that out and weave it through the utilities in the street. We had to pothole or dig holes in the street to find out exactly where the existing lines are located, and they were different than what the survey showed. The big issue is there's an abandoned 24-inch East Bay mud water line in San Pablo Avenue, the entire length of San Pablo Avenue. And so we are beholden to East Bay Mud on their schedule in order to detect what that is, do testing, and actually have to cut the line in 2 places, cut it out so we can put our sewer lines in. And we're working pretty much daily with East Bay Mud to understand what they have to do and what their protocols are. And then we have multi-agency coordination. The site, as most people know, is bordered on 3 sides. One by Emeryville along 47th, by Oakland on 53rd, Caltrans, the state, along San Pablo, and then we have our East Bay Municipal Utility District, East Bay Mud, and PG&E Utilities all in there. It's been one of the most complex sites to do work on the street of anything that I've ever seen. So I just want to point these things out because the team has been working very diligently. We had 2 different separate meetings just yesterday to talk about these utility coordination, and a very productive one at the site today, actually. These are all kinds of things that, when you get into a construction site and you start digging in the street and demoing, you find these. And so I just want to point these things out now. There are potential cost and schedule impacts for all these things. We have not had any, we're just analyzing them now. Importantly, we're trying to analyze how to mitigate our way around them and re-sequence work in the schedule so we don't lose time. But I just wanted to kind of point out these things are things that, especially in the last month or so, we've encountered. Schedule, I won't go into the detail here, but the schedule here shows this, again, the 8-week look ahead that I show every month that shows the highlighted green shows when we're going to be doing certain work. So you can see that as we get into June, we're a lot more wall framing is going to go up. The exterior walls are going to start framing in the high school, so you're going to start seeing the outside and the inside of the high school. The mechanical, electrical, plumbing, which is MEP, that work has started at the high school, so it's the kind of the guts of the building are going to be going together. Both building A and B, the exterior framing, the structural frames will be complete in the next few weeks. If you see building A, that frame is going up right now. Building B is going to follow very soon here. And exterior wall framing is going to start going up. So there's a lot of work going on. And like I said, the only concrete remaining to pour is building C, the first floor and second floor slab and third floor slabs once the steel goes up in that building. So here's some photographs, the fun stuff. So here's building A. This building is framed with some steel, mostly wood, some steel. So you can see that going up. The slab is poured. This is the building B, the admin building. All that concrete slab is now poured. So all the foundations, underground utilities, rebar and concrete is now complete in that building. Except again, the second floor slab actually has a lightweight concrete slab on that, not like the heavyweight concrete you see here. This is the K-8 school. It shows our foundations are now complete. And that one more layer of that slab work, that one layer of concrete still needs to go in, and that's our next phase there before we start erecting steel. Again, this is at the K-8 school, showing all the utilities that are now underneath that concrete coming up. And once we put steel up and start framing walls, then the plumbing and wiring, et cetera, come from those utilities there. Of course, building D, the high school, is the one that's the furthest along. This shows the first floor getting ready for tomorrow's concrete slab pour. That's a vapor barrier, that green there, and you can also see some kind of gravel. That's what you put down before you put concrete, before you pour concrete. This now has some, this was taken last week. This now has some additional mesh and rebar work that's in there prior to the slab being poured. Those silvery things hanging from the roof, that's what holds up the ceilings. So the way it works is those are attached to the underside of that metal deck, and once we get the framing up and put ceiling grid in there, those will support the ceiling frame that holds up the ceiling tiles. This is a good shot that shows the welding and bolting work that's gone in. When the steel goes up, it goes up very quickly, and then you have to go in and weld all these joints and bolt all these joints between the different members. That work is now complete. That's a big milestone. Now we can see here ductwork going in. So you can see back here the top of ductwork. This is the ductwork. These are the shafts for the heating, ventilating, air conditioning system, and that ductwork is now in place. Again, this is a week ago. There's a lot more of it as it goes today. So we're proceeding with lots of progress on lots of different areas of the buildings. And at the gym, we've now completed the steel at the addition. This is the addition to the east of the gym. You can see that steel work complete, and the concrete's now poured. Last month, this looked at, you can see the base rock and was in place, and now the concrete is poured, and all these utilities are now popping up out of that concrete. This is a shot that shows the lead paint abatement. So it's really hard to see, but if you look very closely, there's paint on the steel that's the same color that you would see with 40-year-old structural steel. We don't know why they did it that way, but they actually painted the steel the color of steel. On the right, you can see that kind of Z shape. That's where that lead paint has been abated. See, it's a slightly lighter color than on the left side. And we had to do about 3 weeks of abatement before we could do the structural strengthening of the roof. And you'll see the newer wood up in that roof frame. That's new framing that's put in to seismically stiffen that roof. And you can see how it attaches to the steel in certain locations. So that was one of those unforeseen conditions that I mentioned earlier. This is the framing in the gym. So the gym inside is a wood frame, actually. These are new openings in an existing wall. So these are new openings into the gym itself from the rooms on the side. This is a new wall infilling an existing wall where we're framing in between some of the new steel that's in there. And so the framing, the walls are starting to frame up. I'm sorry about the blurriness of this. This is in the locker rooms. You can see all the plumbing is coming up out of the ground for the toilets. And that wood is basically forming concrete curbs, and after we get that in, the wood framing will go up for those walls. So progress is things are moving along nicely, as these photos show. The big effort the last few weeks has been furniture, fixtures, and equipment, otherwise known as FF&E. As Dr. Rubio mentioned, confirmation of what we in the trade call low voltage systems. These are security, data telecommunications, audiovisual. One of the challenges with every building project these days is when you spec these systems and put them in 2 years later, often the technology changes. So for security, we've done another comprehensive review to make sure that all of our security measures, cameras, card readers, things of that nature are in the right place. We move some of those around. Data telecommunications, one of the things is that the new technology for fibers was called single mode instead of dual mode. So by changing to dual mode, we have to change some of the switches and other things that are in there, but that's the dual mode is rapidly becoming obsolete. And then audiovisual systems, we're looking at what goes in those classrooms. What had been assumed for the last few years was smart boards. That technology is changing very rapidly into more of a touchscreen technology. So we're looking at making sure we have the appropriate technology for the instructional program. So we've been working with Dr. Rubio, the city's IT person, the district's IT person, and the subcontractors to make sure we're doing the right systems with the goal of keeping the budget the same, but making changes that make sense for current technology. In terms of furniture and selection procurement, the first phase is the gym pool procurement. We've got that finalized. We're having a meeting on Friday with the city and the district to finalize that list so we can actually go buy it. And also, we're fine-tuning our budget, which is looking favorable. Looks like going in the right direction, which is great. We're finalizing what's called the piggyback scope of work. This is where we work with other district programs to get the best price for furniture. So we're going to be buying furniture from that we're bid out from a number of different districts' contracts, which is really a great way to do it. We do have a small amount, or probably I'd say about 10% of our furniture we're calling independent items. These are things that need to be bid out that you cannot procure through piggyback. A lot of the gym stuff is like that, like volleyball nets and things like that. Those weren't available on the statewide piggyback contracts. So we're doing those and procuring those. Items that are large enough in value, we'll bid those out. Things that are less than $15,000, we'll still try and get the most competitive price, but we're putting that list together so we can procure those items in the most cost-effective way possible. And that's it for
Can you
this
say
one.
more about you say the FF&E budget is looking promising, or?
Yeah, so our work so far, the MK Think, the consultant, had put together a budget for furniture, and it is trending to be less than that budget. I don't have the final figures yet. We're going to look at those on Friday. It's just it's headed. Like I said, it's headed in the right direction. It looks like we're coming in less than the MK Think budget in many areas.
Mm-hmm. How does it, the JOA says, I think $800,000, or there's some figure in the joint operating agreement that caps FF&E.
There's a budget line item in the budget. There's a line item in the budget of I believe $857,000 for furniture, and there are two other equipment line items, one for instructional equipment and one for IT equipment.
And I could add to that. So
Yeah.
that money is, I think I might have said this at city schools last time, that's not going to be sufficient for that line item.
Right.
That budget was originally approximately, I think, Mr. Baker will correct me if I'm wrong, about $2.5 million.
That's correct.
We were hopeful of realizing a strong cost savings, maybe reusing existing furniture. That wouldn't have saved us very much money, it turns out. And at the 11th hour, we were doing budget adjustments to make sure, to do our best to have a viable budget. That being the case, and again, related to an earlier comment I made that, even some of the technology specs regarding even the ports on the wall were outdated. So we are having to go back and make changes. We noticed that the security system was only, the cameras were only sufficient to observe people trying to enter the campus. Right now at Annie Yates, we have the benefit of cameras on the yard, which has helped us tremendously. And whether it's we've had some incidents with students, we had a parent accuse us of not appropriately monitoring something, which we were able to show was not true, and we actually had an employee issue with a city staff member. So all of that to say that right now, those types of coverage at Annie Yates helps us have a safer, a stronger environment for our students and staff. None of that was set up in the current plans for ECCL, so we had to change that. So what the city and the district we've been doing in our meetings with Swinnerton is trying to make careful decisions, and we're trying not to impact the budget, but honestly, changes and having and trying our best to do things the right way so the teachers have the right infrastructure to keep us in line with changes in technology, et cetera, are going to cost us. And unfortunately, that budget is not going to be sufficient.
Yeah, and you don't have to make these changes, I think you said, but you're desiring.
I would be remiss
Yeah,
if I
to
didn't,
make
yeah.
the change because you
Yeah.
think that they're really in the best interest of the
future of the
overall
building and staff.
project and,
Absolutely.
and what
Yeah.
we want to
Yeah.
provide.
And I think that's the city's thinking as well on the pool as well.
Yeah. And we, this isn't a budget, I don't want to turn this into a budget discussion, but I know that we have some additional funds that we've got from developer fees or the redevelopment account, and
Yeah.
but are we covered for the additional things that we're adding back in at this point in time, or is that there's still an open question?
It's a little bit of, it's an open question. We are, as we're going along, we have been fortunate that we made it through the dirt in the fall, to be quite honest, and that we did not have to impact the contingency budgets as much as, was possible. And we really, in some ways, got pretty lucky with digging into the ground in that facility. There are two contingency budgets, one that Turner controls mostly and one that the city and district control. And so we foresee the ability to continue to push into those budgets. The district we recently added $500,000 to the project. But to answer again your
From
question,
our developer
from our developer
capital
fees.
improvement fees.
That's correct. So it is still an open question, but as time goes along, we are hoping, you never know with construction projects, but we're hoping that we will continue to have good fortune on the contingency money. And so it's an evolving, ongoing question for us.
Okay, but you're not hitting the alarm button yet.
I'm not hitting the alarm button yet.
Okay, all right. Do you, on looking a few slides back on the 8-week look ahead, I guess, how does that compare to, I don't know, 6 months ago? Are we?
So it's a good
what are we
question. So
seeing in the
the main thing is that we've done some we're trying to resequence to work around the site utility issues in the street, and that's been the biggest challenge. Building D, the high school, if you recall, I've reported to the board before, back in October, we had about a 4-week, the state certified, the State Department of Toxic Substance Control certified the site, part of it in late October, part of it in December, and that was later than anticipated by about 4 weeks. We actually did some resequencing of buildings A, B, and C to kind of work around that, but building D had an impact there. Building D right now is about 6 weeks behind schedule, but that still is a completion in December. And we're working very hard with Turner and the rest of the team to realize savings to pick up time. So there's been the only actual request for time extension by Turner has been in relation to the soil that's been issued. And it's 25 days total, but the schedule can absorb that and still meet the contract completion dates. I'd have to look exactly and let you know exactly where we are with each of these items. But Turner's done a really good job of keeping work moving while we work out these other issues. And they're very transparent and they're very communicative when we have an issue, what we have to work out, and that's gone very well. But like with any construction project, the stuff on the ground is always the toughest, and the stuff in the street, especially this 24-inch line, this East Bay Mud abandoned line, has been a big challenge because we couldn't touch that for about 4 weeks until they located what's called the kill notice that was issued in 1961 in their microfiche files. So, and I'll elaborate in coming weeks. I'll elaborate much more in detail on all this. I just want to give everyone a heads up of some of the things we've encountered over the last couple months.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. Baker? Nope. Any public comment on this item? No. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Baker.